them as to what they would like to present. That
Exactly.
can make the lives of the people much easier
Exactly.
and help to
Exactly.
create some form of economic,
Yeah.
income to them.
Yes, yes, and also if they can bring to the attention of the public officials, any area of deficiency or need within their parish or village that the government need to attend to, and they know there are issues of the environment now
Yeah.
that affects health, so they can bring that to their attention,
Right.
so government may need to address it.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, just to mention for the benefit of others, let me just indicate where it's going to be on Tuesday and
Tuesday.
also Wednesday. On Tuesday, it's going to be in St. John, and that's at the St. John Anglican School. And again, GIS will be carrying a live stream. So those of you who are in St. John area, Tuesday the 4th at the St. John Anglican School, and on Wednesday the 5th, it will be it's a consolidated stakeholders session to be held virtually. So Monday, tomorrow, St. Andrew, and then Tuesday, St. John Anglican School.
But Terry, notwithstanding that schedule, I mean, if people can always call the ministry,
Yeah,
if they have any particular issue or recommendation. So
Right.
even though they can't attend, you can always call the Ministry of Finance,
Right.
and let your voice be heard. They will be ready, able and to accept, your recommendation. So it's not limited to that alone.
Right.
The window is there. It's open to each one to
and there is a
call and-
specific office or officer
well,
that's
the budget,
responsible.
the budget, they can call the Ministry of Finance.
All right,
and
the
budget
budget department.
Yeah, and make the recommendation. So this is important. All right, so I just want people to know that.
Right.
And of course, the reason why the different parishes, because parishes have specific needs.
Right,
So you need to
of
go to the
course.
parish. Yeah, there are issues that are national, and there are issues that are specific to the parish. So you need to go there to find out, what are the real issues affecting people. So you can't sit in the Ministry of Finance behind a desk and prepare the budget.
Right. No, of
You
course
got to
not.
go and meet the people to know. So this is a budget for the people.
Yep.
It's not a budget for the international community. It's not a budget for creditors. It's a budget for the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a budget for politicians, but it's a budget for every Grenadian. And I think that's the theme of this year's consultation.
Right.
Yeah, it's a people's budget. Let the ideas reflect in the budget. It's a people's budget.
So, in other words, depending on the participation of each parish or in each session or village will determine the successes or failures
Yeah,
of that particular area.
exactly.
If you don't participate, then nothing comes to the village. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. It's as
Come on
simple
out,
as that.
participate, make your voice be heard, say
Yeah.
what you want,
It's as
and
simple
let's
as
get
that.
it going.
Let's get it good. But in addition to that, there are sector meetings, like agriculture. There was one on agriculture, and there are meetings with tourism and so on. So there are sectors, industries
Sectorial, yes.
that have particular issues that they want to meet with separate. So I mean, it's comprehensive, and people can look forward to the delivery of the budget statement. And see to what extent the ideas are incorporated. If not this year, because not everything can be addressed this year,
Of course.
next year and next year, because there are so many issues to address that all cannot be done in 1 year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
as I hope people don't have that kind of expectation that everything will be done in 1 year.
Well, it's not magic.
And we already know 3 months gone already, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, that's
3 months
right.
gone already. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. Now, after all the consultations, tell us, what is the process now that the Ministry of Finance incorporates in order to now present and finalize that
So
budget?
after all the consultations, then you got to look at what are your statutory obligations regarding expenses. And those have to be programmed. And you have to match it against what are your expected revenue. Because the budget really is really an estimate of what you are likely to receive in revenue as against your expenditure.
Of course.
The tricky part is expenditure is more or less certain. Because if you have 7,000 employees,
Yep,
you pretty know what
you gotta pay out.
what your payout is, right? You know, give and take any increases, you know, negotiated or something. But you pretty know that.
Yep.
Your debt obligation is pretty well known.
Well known, yes.
Yeah. The tricky part is on the revenue
income side.
The income side.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where the tricky part is. And you know that certain income measures have been taken to give relief, well, cost of living measures, but it affected government income. So all of these things have to be looked at, and then you have to match your income with your expenditure. So a budget statement is a statement of your likely expenditure against your expected revenue. And let's hope that the revenue equals your expenditure.
Yep. Or hopefully it's above.
Above, and then you have savings, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, then you have savings. So really and truly, there's a corporate mindset in the way you prepare the budget.
Yeah.
You have to have a corporate mindset because this is really serious business. And it has to be managed properly. And next year, going back to the fiscal responsibility legislation,
Right.
where you have restrictions on expenditure levels and so on. I think I'll aim that, you know, managing how well you spend, backed by the revenues. There is no revenue source, you shouldn't spend the money. All right. Notice, for example, with the supplementary estimate that was presented in Parliament.
Right.
You got to have money
For
that. You have to identify.
Yep.
You know, so even at the consultation, when people make recommendations, they want a bridge here, they need a road fixed there. The government now has to find the resources to get that done.
Yep.
So sometimes your recommendation may not be taken in as yet, albeit they may not have found a revenue source.
The resources,
Yeah, because you have to find the revenue to back the expenditure. And we know the regular source of government revenue, taxation.
Yep.
Right? Taxation, and then other people's taxation, which I call grant. Because when you receive a grant, it's somebody
people's
else
taxes.
somebody else taxes that you receive, and we must be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And use it wisely.
and use it wisely. Sometimes you feel that grant is money just to be spent like that. No, other countries would have made sacrifice and would have managed their resources so that you could get out of it. I mean, of course, there are other reasons why they give money for political reasons, but generally, it's taxes are the main source of revenue. And who pay taxes? The citizens.
People.
People, you and I.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You and I pay
Now,
taxes.
tell us, in the preparation of the budget, do they normally, of course, take into consideration world economic affairs
Yes, well,
in the planning
yes.
processes?
So you had to look at all the factors that would affect your prospects,
Yeah.
your estimates,
Revenue and so
your
forth,
revenue.
yeah.
In thinking about the revenue, well, of course, since we are an open country, yeah, and we import more than we export, our import bill is about, if I remember correctly, is almost $1 billion, almost $1 billion, and our exports is just around, just goods, maybe 70 million. All right, and we, well, tourism receipts kind of fill the gap. Yeah. Otherwise, we would have a massive balance of payment problem.
Yeah.
And then they got to borrow to pay for your inputs. All right. So the world economic situation is very important in considering your estimates for your revenue on the revenue side.
Yep.
Very, very important. We know customs account for almost half of the revenue. Right. So, and that's driven by trade and doing business with the rest of the world.
Right.
Very important. So they got to take that into consideration. They got to really climate, really economic climate, all right, in forecasting the revenue.
Yep.
Got to do that. So that is very, very important.
Very serious indeed.
Yeah.
When you consider what is happening in the world today and what is on the brink.
Yeah. But
occurring.
as I speak about that, let me just throw in two quick issues. One, usually in economic terms, there is always this fight against inflation or unemployment.
Yeah.
In theory, you fight one. But in practice, we now have the challenge of creating jobs and fighting inflation.
Yep.
It's a double-barrel gun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a double-barrel gun, and it's not easy
Yeah.
to be
Trying to create
fighting
jobs and fighting
fighting
inflation all at the
inflation.
same time.
and trying to create
Yeah.
jobs
Fighting two giants at once.
at the same time. And this makes it interesting.
Yep.
it makes it interesting as we try to create job and create wealth, right?
Yep.
And then you have high cost of living on the other hand. I think it'll be very, very interesting as we reconfigure how well we put measures in place to grow the economy going forward. That will be very, very interesting.
No, I think the whole aspect of creative financing through people's participation may have to be something that ought to be on the front burner of creating jobs, creating wealth at the same time, creating some form of additional export earning capacity. Has to be, primary on the minds of the planners and so forth at the Ministry of Finance.
Of course, Terry, because you don't pay for imported goods with EC dollars.
Oh.
You pay with foreign currency. You earn foreign currency by exporting.
That's right.
Whether you're exporting a service or exporting a good. And to export, you got to produce. Production. This is very, very important.
Yep.
So I'm sure going forward, you would see special incentives to attract investment into production for export.
Export.
Right? It is very, very important.
Export-led.
Export-led. So that is very important. So we are producing, and we going back to agriculture, we are producing, but not just for our own consumption.
That's right.
We would really like to export some of those to get some foreign currency.
Well,
and that is important. We are a small economy.
Well, as I see it right now, with the present economic world outlook and what is on the horizon with, imminent war on the horizon, it ought to give us more encouragement to start producing more for local consumption and hopefully for exports.
Yeah.
Because one, you got to be self-sufficient in food, because God forbid if a world war breaks out, it means boats are not traveling to the Caribbean to come and drop off canned foods. They'll be blown off the water. So this should give us the impetus to really get serious on food production.
But I want to make
security.
I want to make a point about food security. You should never eat all what you produce, eh?
No, of course not. Export some.
And apart from exporting some, you have other needs, Terry.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You have health care.
Yep.
So if a fisherman, if he just eat all his catch, how is he going to take care of his health? How is he going to take care of the children's education?
You got to sell some of it.
So he got to, and that's the education. We have to start with people. You can't eat everything.
Yep.
Eating everything is a recipe for poverty.
Yep.
Eating your entire consumption, right?
Yes.
Everything that you have, you eat it, or you consume, is a recipe for poverty.
As a matter of fact, if you eat too much, it's bad for your health.
So as we revigorate and re-energize the productive sectors of the economy, we got to teach those things, right? Teach those management of finances. You consume some, you save some, to take care of your other needs, housing, health care, education. That has to come from what you produce.
Right. But are these things more or less expressed or taught or spoken about in these budget consultations throughout the country?
No, I don't.
Or there isn't enough time for that?
Maybe there is not enough time for it. But I think that is so important.
Very, very important.
Because you hear people say there is money in fishing. Right? And if you and you know the parishes that are predominant fishing villages, right? And then when you look at the statistics, which parishes are the poorest?
Yep, the same ones that are producing the most.
You understand? Exactly. So the point I make is that you can't eat everything you make. It's a recipe for poverty.
But,
you got to save and invest in other areas to take care of your other needs.
But what is obvious in these said villages that produce so much fish, they don't, as you rightfully put it, they don't seem to have that economic muscle with them. And it is simply because of either poor or no training in money management.
Yeah.
So they sell, they spend. No savings, no investment.
And saving is a sacrifice.
And this is something that needs to be taught in the villages.
Yeah.
Because if we don't grow wealth among our people, it means that we are stagnant.
Yep. Yeah, you're correct about that. You're correct about that.
You need to make a few millionaires in Grenada,
Yeah. Well, you got to
be it
create
in the
wealth.
fishing sector, agriculture, whatever sector.
You got to create wealth.
Create wealth.
Wealth create. And I was in a different program where I was speaking about in creating wealth, the whole issue of labor's contribution to the creation of wealth. What is a fair share for labor?
Yep.
And I suppose you'll invite me back to another program because I'll be giving leadership to the whole issue of raising the minimum wage.
Yep.
All right? As a means of trying to raise income level.
Yep.
Yeah, but I can hint to you that the way we were looking at minimum wage going forward is trying to link it with productivity.
Yep.
So there'll be some news on recalibrating how we do things. I'm just giving you a hint.
Yeah, sure.
So
Absolutely.
you tie a man's wage to his production and his
Production.
productivity.
Yeah.
That is very, very important.
In other words, you don't reward a man for not producing or underproducing. He must be encouraged to produce, and that extra production must come in some form of compensation.
Exactly. And this is the way for, because as I told you, as you said earlier on, we have the issue of high cost of living, right? Then we have high unemployment. But there's another problem we have. We have high poverty levels.
Yep.
I don't want to keep adding the problems,
No, but
they are interlinked.
We've got to be conscious of it.
They are linked. There's a connection between them. Yeah, so maybe in addressing growth and employment, you're addressing poverty. But in trying to address poverty, we have to deal with the levels of income, all right, and pay, and what is a fair contribution to the creation of wealth. We'll have to address that because there are some people who would say they work all their life and they still can, they're still at a certain level. You understand?
Yeah.
And the whole idea of skills and upgrading skills, so you could attract a higher wage. You have more skills and, you could attract a higher wage. All those things have to be looked at as we move forward. Now, all these things will not be addressed in the budget because sometimes the budget is just a statement of revenue and expenditure.
Yeah.
But I want to say that behind those expenditures, are addressing these critical issues.
Yeah,
You might spend more on the money program, for example, to retool and reskill the young people. All right? And I think the idea is to make it a real training program.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, they get skills, they could get a higher job. And that would be reflected in the budget in terms of spending for the program. So while it is expenditure and income, is also related to a lot of programs to help build
poverty
poverty and bring it up.
But on the issue of skills, I know one area in particular, and I've raised it several times. We do issue licenses to individuals to carry out certain tasks in Grenada, simply because we don't have the skill set. What I would like to see being mandatory, if a license is issued to a non-national to come to Grenada to carry out a job, he must be mandated to have at least 2 or 3 persons to understudy him to carry out that job. So in due course, we ain't going to need to import that skill set anymore. And that has, in my opinion, that must be a part of you obtaining a license to work
now,
as a non-Grenadian.
So Terry, so let's balance that now against that particular non-resident complaining that the knowledge and the skills and the competencies he needs to satisfy the mandatory requirement is not present.
Well, you have to start somewhere. Apprenticeship must start
So how
somewhere.
do we reconcile?
Well, you reconcile by saying, okay, the skill set is not there to get going.
Right.
But at least just the exposure alone is enough for a young person to identify, I think I like going into that sector or that particular training, or I like it, I'm going to make the sacrifice and learn more about it.
Yeah.
But at least you expose the young people to it.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm
And
making.
for example, our oil and gas sector, who have we sent to learn about oil and gas production? Absolutely no one. But we have a futuristic earning sector out there that I don't think any Grenadian has been exposed or sent on training to really develop their skill set in oil and gas production.
Yeah, fair enough. That's so we have to position our people to be able to take up these opportunities.
Absolutely.
We have to position them, and therefore to position them, you got to have training programs and skills and incentives for people to get into these specialized areas and to acquire these skills. IT, for example, right? IT is the platform on which development will be driven these days.
Oh, yeah.
Right, the IT platform. How about the IT infrastructure?
Exactly.
Can it accommodate an increase in investment, right, in that area? Do we still have what we have 4G or 5? We 4G now, right?
4G and some areas 5G.
Right. So I'm just saying, and then how many players we have? We have two players.
2 or 3. Yeah,
So
they're
I'm
a very
saying,
small one.
as we look into the digital economy, we have to start looking at the sector and the
Absolutely.
infrastructure. So when you strengthen the infrastructure, you're now attracting certain investors, and then in attracting investors, there'll be demand for skills, yeah,
Skills.
and that feed into the educational system, and people will start having training programs now, just equip people with the skills so they could get a job, and that's how you interrelate everything that is happening.
What our National Development Plan 2035, has it or did it take into consideration all of these, I would say, mandates?
Yes, the National Development Plan, I was involved in bits and pieces. It does, but it is still a framework. Yeah, we now have to get into developing the action plans and the detailed plans, right? But it's a framework for development. But a lot of work has to get into
We have
the
only
actions.
13 years to go.
Yeah, I
Only
know.
13 years to go.
I know.
And we may have to get to the point whereby we identify what our needs are and start sourcing scholarships from friendly governments and find people who have interest in those various areas and essentially post them abroad. 5-year training under clear mandates, you come back to serve. And that's the only way we can really lift capacity in the country.
You're correct.
And get it moving.
I know a certain country that they send the students abroad to work, but they have to come back home after a while. They send them abroad to acquire skills and competencies. So even though they go to university, they have training abroad, and then they come back to build the country.
Yeah, of course, you must serve.
And we have to start thinking about migration together, kind of as an investment.
As an investment.
In our human resources. That's how we had to look at it.
Because we have lost a lot of capacity among our people simply because of political indifferences over the many, many years. And lots of our people went abroad serving, doing well in big countries. And we continue to be depleted in skills, abilities, and businesses looking for quality employees are struggling.
Yeah, but I also want to encourage employers to give the employees the time off they need when they are studying online or when they have to do an exam. Because some employees who complain, they are willing to do a degree online or to study further. And you have the St. George University where they can go.
Right.
Have a university on island that is quite able to help build capacity.
Yep.
But sometimes they would say, they won't get the time off, to do exams. So sometimes I am encouraging employers to be flexible and work an arrangement out where maybe the employee can maybe go midday and do an exam, or go midday and take a class just for an hour and a half, and they put back the time and make some arrangement. But I would really like to see that cooperation. Yeah, I know some employers do it.
But this is where our Ministry of Education needs now to interact with the business community and, impress upon them the importance of giving time off, which is in their interest. It's an investment for the future. So you get a more qualified, skilled employee that can generate more production for your company.
Yeah, and this is important because as you talk about finance and the economy, if we don't raise the level of skills of the labor force, the jobs that are trending now are high skill jobs with all different competencies. We have to raise the level
Of
of
course.
our people. And therefore education at different levels are important. There are a lot of online opportunities now, online programs. You have the University of the West Indies, you have St. George University that I'm affiliated with, and there are tremendous opportunities. So the scholarships and the support, maybe not a scholarship, but just a fund to give you a loan, interest with no interest, for example. I know the GDB used to be doing that, giving student loans at low interest rate. You only start paying it back after you would have completed your studies. I don't know how that is going now, but we need to see more resources put into helping students, helping people access funds. We need to see more of that. In addition to the scholarships, we need to see more of that because there is an urgency, and I just want to repeat, there is an urgency for upscaling the competencies of our labor force to meet the demands of this modern era, to raise productivity. You can't raise productivity if you don't have skills.
Precisely.
All right? You cannot do it.
But don't you think this ought to be a mandate of the government to insist upon financial institutions to put aside X percentage of their earnings in order to provide soft loans? And I want to say soft, I mean real soft loans to students to build capacity to come back and serve in their own entity.
Yeah. And maybe we could even go further. We can say, look, if you invest X amount in supporting training, right, you could get some tax relief.
Tax concessions.
You get some tax relief when you submit your statement at the end of the year for corporation tax. Maybe that could be a deductible, for example. But we need to give employers incentives to divert resources to help employees.
All right. Well, there's another item which I'll raise with you, but we'll take a short break and we'll be back with you in a moment. We're chatting with Dr. Curlin Gilchrist, Economic Policy Advisor to the Ministry of Finance, former Economic Policy Advisor. Back with you in a moment.
I also want to express my support to the Prime Minister for the supplementary estimate that was actually presented to the House here today. And given the fact that my ministry appears to be one of the ministries that has the lion's share in this appropriation here.
This ministry is not just limited to infrastructure projects. This ministry revolves at the center of government. And we are here to ensure that all projects and programs are implemented on time, because we have seen from the past that Grenada have suffered from a low implementation rate when it comes to projects and programs. And by that, we were losing grants and so in the process, grants which was approved and at the end is there to alleviate poverty and so at the end of the day. And our government, our Prime Minister, thought that it was necessary to create such a ministry to ensure that we do not lose these grants and to ensure that Grenada increases the implementation rate so that things can be done more efficiently and effectively.
Former administration had begun discussions with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to receive some grant funding. We have continued those discussions, and I'm happy to report that $10 million in fact has been made available by the Saudi Arabian government towards the people and government of Grenada as grant funding. And so as I started this morning by saying, I take no credit when no credit is due, I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to indicate that the credit is due to the prior administration for initiating those discussions.
Welcome back to the NDC Heartbeat program for today's Sunday. Beautiful afternoon in Grenada. And we're chatting with Dr. Curlin Gilchrist, former Economic Policy Advisor to the Ministry of Finance. And we're talking finance. Dr. Gilchrist, the issue of grants, as explained there by Minister Andy Williams. We've had in the past grants issued to Grenada, And because of our lack of ability to utilize the grants, grants were returned. This is a sad story for our capacity in Grenada.
That's correct. It is sad.
Very sad.
Let's hope next year you would not be making that statement, right?
No, I'll be saying differently. I'm saying in the past, grants had to be returned. And that was sad.
Yes, grants are given. Some grants are given for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And there sometimes there are conditions that you have to be that has to be satisfied in accessing the grant. And sometimes we don't have the human
capacity again.
to satisfy
That's
it.
where we're lacking.
And so we have to lose it. It's sad, and this has affected our development. Now, the minister was speaking about our implementation rate. Traditionally in Grenada, right, has been low.
Yeah, no, World Bank has cited that as a real problem for us.
And I know the World Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank have attempted to address that problem by creating a project unit and by training our our employees in the project unit. So they had specialized courses at the organized by the Caribbean Development to train people in project management, project writing, proposal writing, and how to manage a project, And in those days, the Ministry of Finance used to have what they call a public sector investment program committee that look at all the issues. Now we have gone away from that. So most of the young professionals may need some training in project management. And
so we had moved away from that.
We have moved away.
So now we have to bring this back.
We had to bring it back
on focus.
We had to bring it back. We have to bring back. We have to put emphasis on training our people in project management because there are different elements of a project.
Yeah.
And you need to know where I hear the minister speak about improving on implementation. And I suppose key to that is identifying where the bottlenecks are and being able to find a solution to the bottlenecks. Because some of it sometimes we require maybe administrative measures.
Yep.
Right?
Because I know some grant countries, they have a specific template for accessing grant funding. And if you're not familiar with that template, you could write from now till the cows come home and you ain't getting nothing.
You ain't getting it. The European Union, for example, they have very strict conditions for accessing the thing. And for example, but also sometimes that condition too is also the country and its own credibility. For example, if you are put on if you are blacklisted, for example,
that's
that would
another
affect
issue.
accessing grant.
Yep.
So there are some other global issues that the countries global requirements that the countries have to be compliant with in order to access grants, and so there are other issues that affect it.
So this is why it's equally important to pay your debts.
Yeah.
And other such like matters.
You got to be creditworthy.
You got to be creditworthy. You can't be on the blacklist. Otherwise, you can't qualify.
Yeah, you got to be creditworthy. So when you
it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act. So when you are negotiating a transaction, when you are negotiating a loan, you are now able to ask for a grant component. Yeah? Yep. As part of that country's contribution to your own development.
Right.
If you are creditworthy, I mean, that would be an easy sell.
Yep.
All right. So grants, we have, I noticed when you look at the budget estimates, we never get all the grants that we budgeted for. And sometimes a lot of administrative and other issues that sometimes that we could do better. Yeah? Yep. We can do better and follow through. Follow through. Some of it involves working through the embassies abroad and our ambassadors abroad.
Yep.
Follow through.
Yeah, but surely there are individuals abroad whom we can access to provide crash training programs for our people within the Ministry of Finance, 6-month training as to how to prepare these documents and so forth to access these grants. Because there's a lot of grant money out there all over the world.
So in the Ministry of Finance, really, you only record it as a grant when it is certain.
It is right.
So if you visit another country, if you visit another country and the two prime ministers exchange courtesies and so on, and he promised you some money. You don't want to put it in the budget.
No. A promise sometimes is not fulfilled.
No, so it has to get to a point of certainty, right, before you record it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the country making the promise has its own arrangement to fulfill.
Yep.
Sometimes they have to go to parliament, sometimes they have other things to do.
Yep.
All right, so that
Most
can become a reality. So it was only at the point where you certain
Yep.
it should be recorded
You
as
get written confirmation that,
that
will
it's a
happen.
grant. Otherwise, it will be there on your books for years, and you can't collect.
Now, the matter of investors investing in Grenada. Have we ever thought of saying to investors, because we give them a lot of concessions, value concessions, what if we say to them 1% of your gross income must go into a special fund for training, educational development, literacy programs, and building capacity within our people to come back and serve in the same investment to their advantage?
So you're speaking about levying the income, putting a levy?
Yeah, saying to them, make a 1% of your gross income towards a special fund for developing capacity in Grenada. That said capacity comes back and work in your entity to help build your income.
Yes. Well, let me rephrase it. Let
Okay.
me put it differently,
Yeah.
because you don't want to you don't want them to shy away, right?
No.
So
You're asking them to help themselves.
right. So some countries would ask them to be a corporate citizen.
Yeah, put it nicely.
And part of us agreeing to give you incentives is your commitment
Yeah.
to contribute, right?
Fashion it in the smoothest diplomatic way.
Yeah, to contribute. So you have seen some investors taking on like some homes and something, and taking on certain
that
things.
has been done by
All
one or
right.
two, yes.
So we could always get that social commitment by them, yeah, and build it in the concession as a commitment, as an obligation we have. This is important.
Yeah. Well,
Because concession is granted, it means we are foregoing revenue.
in other countries, it's mandatory.
But some economists would argue that they don't see the argument, because what they are saying, you never had it in the beginning.
Well, that is true.
So what are you talking about?
In other words, if I give you $20 million in concessions and you refuse me, you're refusing me something that you never had.
Yeah.
So give it to me so I can give you something
Exactly.
in return.
Exactly.
Jobs, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Exactly.
Economists always have this conversation.
Yeah, but you can't lose something you never had, right?
Well, of course not.
So you say
You never had it, you never
we
lose
lose
it.
millions in concession. We never had it.
No, if you don't give the investor the concessions, then you are getting something that you never had,
Right.
which is the investment.
Right.
If you don't give him and he don't start the project, you don't get nothing. From nothing leaves nothing.
Exactly. So so this is why countries are obligated to invite them in, let them start, and then try to get them to make a contribution to. So I'm suppose as we go forward, as we come to the end of the program, as we go forward, the part of the rebuilding the economy, revitalizing the economy, there would be the conversation of attracting foreign investment.
Yeah,
Because we need the additional resources.
yeah.
We are only 110,000 people. Right? We have a workforce of just about 50,000 people, to service 110,000 people. And you understand what happened to NIS now, okay, in terms of contribution income.
Yep.
So we got to grow the economy, increase employment to help the NIS receive.
So
increased
NIS could survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hinge on employment.
Of course.
All right, we have to
Rotational employment.
we got to put people to work.
Yep, that's
and when
it.
you put people to work, then the economic day is not 8 to 4, but it's now 24 hours.
Yeah, 24
all right?
hours.
So people working at night, busmen get started run, taxi run, restaurants open, and you keep the economy spinning and moving.
But now you're actually confirming now how important transportation is to economic development.
Very important.
The guy in Grenville who wants to come in town midnight to come and drink maybe 2 beers.
Yeah.
He can say, I would stay home in Grenville. I can't get no bus. I can't get no guarantee of transportation. So I gone to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transportation is key
So,
to
and,
economic development.
and Terry, I like that point. So it may mean to kickstart that availability of transportation, God may have to look at some kind of framework to subsidize.
Yeah.
until it gets to a point where it can, compensate itself. Because the availability of transportation affects employment.
Yep.
Yeah,
Of course.
and entertainment, which is also part of the economy, the entertainment industry, all right, and all of that,
Major part.
culturally, major part.
Major
The transportation is important. So some framework would have to look at, to provide transportation to facilitate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think if we do keep looking at it that way, I think we are there.
I make reference to Manhattan in the United States. Manhattan was just a piece of rock where nothing happened. The minute that Manhattan Bridge was built, Manhattan became the centerpiece of economic development in the United States. Transportation.
So can we build a bridge from Caracou to Grenada?
It's not
Or let's
impossible.
build a highway from Sotes to St. George's.
It's not impossible.
Ease the traffic congestion.
Whatever the mind can think of, it's possible to achieve. China has built bridges as from here to Trinidad,
Yeah.
90 miles to the closest point. Caracou is easy. So when Winty Frederick spoke about the bridge, he was ahead of his time,
Yeah.
but it is possible to achieve.
Yes, we got to do something. Transportation is another area of part of the
Oh, yeah.
economic
development.
economic development, especially in the south, because the south drives the economy of Grenada.
That's right.
And we got to do something about that because
Absolutely.
it affects productivity. You can't spend a whole hour in traffic.
Well,
When you reach to the job
kills
late,
the spending.
yeah, exactly, and you are less productive, right?
Yep.
And you can't be on your phone doing anything online,
Yep.
because that's against the law, right? So we had to look at it. And so we have a lot of work to do in terms of rearranging the economy, adjusting the economy as we face the challenges of this modern world. But we got to bring our young people, our minds together and think outside the box. Well, just think differently. I never like to say outside the box.
Yep. Change of mindset.
Yeah, and I think we can do it.
Absolutely.
We can do it. We just got to be brave.
This is our time now to do it.
And if we miss it this time, Terry.
If we miss it, then we'll be in trouble.
Thank you very much, Terry.
Time has certainly caught up with us, so let me ask you to give just your final closing comments.
Yes, I just want to say that we now have an opportunity to rebuild this country. And we want to encourage everyone to participate in the rebuilding process. This is our country. Let's come together. Let's put our mind, our talent, our intellect, and let's build it. And when we do that together, we all would benefit from the fruits of our building. All right? And I think Grenada would be a better country. So we got to create wealth. We got to create employment. We got to give labor its fair share. Government will get its revenue from the economic activity and be able to take care of its citizens. And I think if you look at these things together, I think Grenada would be a much better place for our children, not for me, for our children in the future. So there is hope. There is hope.
You have no intention of going anywhere very soon.
No. But there is hope. So let's not get daunted and frustrated and by what's going on outside here, and that would prevent us from thinking we can do it. We can do it. Don't matter how outside look, how the global situation look, the wars and all of that. We can do it.
Just a change of mindset.
Change of mindset. All right? Size is not important. All right? Because we can be small and yet be the icon of the Caribbean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed, Dr. Curlin Gilchrist, former Economic Policy Advisor to the Ministry of Finance. And my thanks also to Brother Leslie McQueen, the newly elected chairperson of the South Florida NDC grouping or chapter. We thank you for joining Heartbeat today. And to all of you who participated, tuned in, or logged on, we thank you very much. Until next week, see you again. Have a great Sunday afternoon.